Give me a minute here. I gotta work myself up into this episode. It doesn't happen often, but sometimes I'm just not in the mood.
Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man of wealth and taste.
I'm the king of rock, there is none higher. So your MCs should call me sire.
You might say, well, if you're not in the mood, why do an episode? Because I can get in the mood if you just give me a minute. You know what? You know what can get me in the mood real quick? Beyonce. Now look, I don't want no trouble from the Beehive, and I know you ain't supposed to go after Queen Bee. I know.
Back in 1955, man didn't know about a rock and roll show.
I don't want to cause no trouble. I don't want to cause no problems with the Beehive or with Beyonce, but I refuse to be intimidated in silence. Did I hear Beyonce call her daughter a legend at her birthday concert? Beyonce's 42nd birthday concert. She called her daughter, Blue Ivy, a legend. She did. I went looking for the clip to play it, and what I found was, it's far worse than I thought. When she was like 7 years old, Beyonce went to court to trademark her daughter's name. Her daughter's name, Blue Ivy, in court. She wanted to trademark it for things like perfume and cosmetics. And in the court records, they called Blue Ivy, the daughter, a cultural icon. A cultural icon, saying she is followed by media and the public. Well, so's a hurricane. Nobody tries to trademark those names. But, okay, yeah, cosmetics, perfumes, I know. That's what every singer, entertainer, influencer, people of lesser talent, it seems like, do a lot of times these days. They put their names on perfume and makeup and all that kind of stuff. Okay. But come on. Come on, Beyonce. Have you never read a book, seen a documentary about the downfall, the what's the word I'm looking for? The pitfalls of childhood entertainers, the pitfalls of children not having a childhood. Haven't you seen it, Beyonce? Come on.
Riders on the storm, into this house we're born, into this world we're thrown, like a dog without.
And don't you tell me, oh no, this is what Blue Ivy wanted. This started when she was born. This started way beyond before Blue Ivy knew what it was to be popular or be famous. So don't give me that stuff. You just wait. You wait until my girl Taylor Swift can keep a man and get pregnant and have a daughter. Then we'll see a real legend. I got to get to the show. Get to the topic of the show. When being right isn't good enough. I think that music has effectively fired me up. But first, before I get to the main topic, Bob Barker. Come on now. Bob Barker. I haven't been on. I don't think I have since then. But he was the man. I thought Alex Trebek was good, but Bob Barker, he was the best ever. I'm giving it to him. I watched that Price is Right special last night with Bob Barker, and man, was he good. Drew Carey is fine, but, if he left the Price is Right tomorrow, no one would care. There are rare people you can't see a game show without. Bob Barker, Alex Trebek, Pat Sajak, I guess. I mean, anybody can stand there and go, oh, no, there's no T. But Pat Sajak, is Vanna White leaving as well? Pat Sajak's leaving. Is Vanna White leaving? Or is she just going to turn into dust right before our eyes on that show? I don't know. I know it's not a game show, but how about Maury Povich? Can you picture anyone else sitting there going, you are not the father? He's good at it. You know who's a really good current game show host? Jane Lynch on The Weakest Link. She's good. She does just enough. She cracks just enough jokes, but not too much to get in the way of the game. She's a good game show host. And I don't like many of the new game shows. You know why? Because they all feel the need to drag me in to these people's personal problems. They want you to have an emotional connection with these people on the game show. What's the show with the ball drop? What's the name? I forget the name of that show. Where the people, they could win $1 million, they drop the ball. I don't know the name of that show. But every episode, these people got to show up with some hard luck story. Last year in a freak accident, a hot air balloon fell on our mother. It was brother and sister. A hot air balloon fell on our mother. And they put up a smiling picture of the mother up on the screen. She's paralyzed from the forehead down. We need this money to make the house handicap friendly and pay our medical bills. That's all. We just want to win money for mom. And then at the end, they got to come out and they got to face each other and cry and say, I love you, right? I don't need that. I don't need that. I'm there for the game. I just want to watch the game. I want to see if they win money. It's the same with Deal or No Deal. One tragedy after another. I just want to know what's in the briefcase. I just want to know if you made a good deal. I don't want to get pulled into your personal problems. I got my own problems. But rest in peace, Bob Barker. All right. I got to get to the main topic. But before I do, I'm going to get to it. I promise you. When being right just isn't enough. Just a few short thoughts on the GOP debate. GOP. I haven't talked about that either. Haven't been on to talk about the GOP debate. And I wasn't going to say anything because, why bother? Right? You know what I'm saying. But here's all I'll say. Can we get some other, what's the word? I'll just say organization, some other entity to host these debates? Enough with the media hosting debates. Enough. They suck at it. I don't care if the next debate is hosted by the National Association of Circus Performers. Anyone but left-leaning media or right-leaning media. Anyone but the media hosting the next debate. How can they still be asking raise your hand questions? How? Hasn't there been enough criticism of the raise your hand question? It's like putting candidates on a stage, packing the audience with teenage girls, and saying, raise your hands if you think girls rule and boys drool. I mean, what? Raise your hand if you would vote for Trump if convicted? And look, don't tell me, oh, no, they allowed them to give context to their answer to whether they raised their hand or not. No, come on. The next day, all that's going to be reported, every single Republican candidate raised their hand. Every single one raised their hand. They would vote for Trump, even if he was convicted. So nobody's going to report on what the context was, what Chris Christie said. He tried to say, I raised my hand, but I didn't raise my hand. No one's really going to report on that. All they're going to say is every single one raised their hand. Convicted of what? That's a stupid question. Would you vote for Trump if he was convicted? Convicted of what? I mean, he's charged with a lot of things. Convicted of the most serious charges or some of the lesser, just kind of tacked on kind of charges. I don't know. Depends on that. I'd like to see a trial where there'll be new evidence that we don't know, that we have no idea, that will be presented at the trial. That might sway me one way or the other if he's convicted with some new harsh evidence that we don't know about. I can't think of a dumber way to ask a question in a debate than raise your hand. Raise your hand. It's so stupid. The only other thing I'll say, I'll give my advice, my unsolicited advice to these GOP candidates. And I don't know if anyone's already said this. It's not, there's no stroke of genius, but go after Joe Biden. If you want to get the Republican nomination, go after Joe Biden. Don't go after the other people on the stage. Act like the other people on the stage are an afterthought. That's what unites the Trump base and the more centrist Republicans. They want someone who can show they can beat Biden. Show you can beat Biden, and you don't have to prove yourself that you're better than any other candidate. The only person who will be standing in your way at the end is Trump. But I've already talked to diehard Trump supporters, and they are willing to vote for someone else. They see the writing on the wall with Donald Trump, if they're honest with you. So getting past Donald Trump may not be as hard as some people think it is, if you can show you truly can beat Joe Biden. That's what people in the Republican Party want, whether they're Trump supporters, whether they're moderate Republicans. All right, that's it. That's it. Let's move on to the main topic. If you didn't watch the debate, don't bother. I just told you all you need to know. Don't even bother watching that debate. Don't worry about it. Don't feel bad. So, when just being right isn't good enough, right about what? I'm going to give you some of the most common views that I think most of us, it's never all of us, but close to all of us, I think, would agree on. Would agree are correct views. But I'm going to show you that just because you're right about your view, it just isn't good enough. The first one, we'll start with an easy one. Climate change. All right, listen to this.
New at 6:30, the conclusion of our week-long investigative series, Kids in Crisis, the mental health crisis impacting our children. And anyone with kids knows they worry sometimes about very different things than their parents do. One of the big ones lately, climate change.
Research is showing that most young people are extremely worried about it, but there is something they can do about those feelings.
Our national environmental correspondent David Schechter connects with a professor doing novel research on climate change anxiety.
Okay, so nothing to really argue there, except maybe people's obsession with coming up with smart-sounding names for things. Climate anxiety. The youth of today are facing a new mental health crisis. Climate anxiety. All right. But nothing to argue about really there. It's unfair for some of the most polluted air to always be in poor, unrepresented neighborhoods. Okay. It's like everyone wants tough law enforcement, but no one wants a prison near them. I get it. We all want energy, but not produced near me. Okay? But fine. Nothing to argue. And of course, climate change is a problem. But being right isn't good enough. You know why the youth are so concerned? Because the youth don't have a mortgage to pay, kids to feed, a job in coal or oil or natural gas that pays far more than any other job in the area. So you got to tell those people how they're going to survive if their industry goes away. Just being right about the problem isn't enough. And when you tell these working class people that you need their industry to go away, act like you got some sense when you tell them. Don't tell someone who's struggling to put food on the table, oh, listen, if we transition off fossil fuels, we can lower our net carbon emissions and carbon footprint and bring down global temperatures by 1.5 Celsius over the next 25 years. First of all, I speak American. I don't know what language Celsius is. I say Fahrenheit. Second of all,
or blah, blah,
excuse
blah.
me.
Blah, blah, blah.
Can I finish?
Economy.
Can I finish,
blah,
Greta
blah,
Thunberg? Blah. Second of all, what a rude little girl. Second of all, people don't know all the mumbo jumbo about carbon emission this and footprint that. People know that they need to pay their bills today. It's as simple as that. People need to pay their bills today. So just being right about the science of climate change isn't enough. Move on to the next one, doggone Greta Thunberg.
I told when I ran for president, I told you I'd have your back. And I have. You know, there are a lot of politicians in this country who don't know how to say the word union. They talk about labor. They don't say union. It's union. I'm one of them. I'm proud to say union. I'm proud to be the most pro-union president according to the experts about in American history. And by the way, I make no bones about that. Folks, in this Labor Day, let me tell you what we're celebrating. We're celebrating jobs, good-paying jobs, jobs you can raise a family on, union jobs.
Now, I have done several shows on unions. To put it bluntly, I see the pros and the cons. I know that's sacrilege to say that to some people on the left, that there could possibly be any cons to unions, but that's what I say. But I also say I agree with Joe Biden. I agree with the left. The American labor is the best in the world and the most valuable commodity this country has. No joke, as Biden would say. This country's wealth comes from its labor, and unions can play an important role in making sure the playing field between labor and business remains level. So you're right. People who think that, people who take that viewpoint, I'm agreeing with you, you're right. But just being right isn't enough. I just said labor is a commodity. Commodities have value. V-A-L-U-E. Value. Value is the importance, worth, or usefulness of something. As technology, artificial intelligence, global markets change, the importance, worth, or usefulness of something, such as a commodity like labor, also has to change, or also will change. As these changes take place, will the federal government intervene for political purposes, perhaps writing harsher rules for businesses in regards to collective bargaining, making it easier for workers to organize, even workers at entry-level jobs or jobs that are commonly known as low-wage jobs, like in fast food, where unions have never really been a big thing in the past at these types of jobs because people generally didn't stay in these types of jobs for very long. That's just the way it was. People get burnt out in the jobs because they're tough jobs, or they had no intention. They were stepping stone jobs. They were jobs for kids, for young people. So as things change, will the government pick sides in this battle between unions and labor? Should the government pick sides in this battle between unions and labor, or should the free market determine the outcome? The free market value. If the commodity, if the labor has importance, worth, or usefulness, they should have nothing to worry about. But if this trend continues where politically businesses are seen not necessarily so much as really treating their workers unfairly or paying their workers unfairly, but just there's such a disparity between the billions and billions of dollars the businesses are making and what the workers are making, the government feels a need to pick sides. Which way will it go? Which way should it go? In other words, will politicians try to stop the natural progression of a more automated, skilled, educated workforce as some try to stop the natural progression to a renewable energy economy? Different sides of the same coin, if you ask me. So, not enough to be right about the value of labor in this country. We can agree. You are right. Nothing more valuable than a good worker. It's time to discuss what the inevitable future of labor will look like so people can prepare and transition to that in the future. That future worker. Why would I choose to do something like this when I can barely talk? All right, one more, maybe two. Listen to this.
Those dangers below freezing temperatures were what migrants from Texas faced when they arrived on Christmas Eve at the home of Vice President Kamala Harris in Washington, D.C., once again arranged by Texas Governor Greg Abbott. 3 buses from Texas dropped off about 140 people outside the U.S. Naval Observatory on Saturday, Christmas Eve. Immigration activists called the incident particularly cruel because there were young children and babies among those dropped off, and many migrants lack shoes and other clothing.
Okay, so this episode is when being right isn't enough. So am I saying that Governor Greg Abbott of Texas was right to do what he did? No, no, it's horrible. These are human beings. They're not cattle. All right. We all understand that. What I'm saying is he's made his point. I think Greg Abbott has made his point as far as the problem that we have at the southern border. We should all agree. He's right. The southern border is a major crisis, and it's the federal government's responsibility to secure the border, and they have not done it, and they are not doing it right now. Now, you barely went a day without a Democrat criticizing Trump or visiting the border and posting videos of the deplorable conditions that they found. Now, not a whole lot of visits. Not a whole lot of visits from the Democratic caucus. Not a whole lot of visits, including from Vice President Kamala Harris, who Joe Biden put in charge of the border. Come on now. The tactic of busing people around, like I said, it's wrong. Sending them to Martha's Vineyard, sending them to Kamala Harris's house. It's all like a, let me stick it to you sort of thing. And you shouldn't be doing that with human beings. I get that. But the point has been made. Mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, says this has created a humanitarian crisis for his city. Well, if a few thousand creates a creates a crisis, what do you think a couple of million are going to do? Eric Adams complained that Governor Greg Abbott, wasn't even giving him notice that he was busing these migrants to New York City. Oh, I'm sorry, Eric Adams. Yeah, they generally don't give you notice when they're going to cross the border. They don't mail a postcard to you 2 weeks in advance saying, hey, here's where we're going to sneak into the country. So, yeah, Greg Abbott has made his point. It's a problem. It's a major, major problem. So Greg Abbott is right to point that out. But just being right isn't enough. You can't lose all of your humanity to try and solve a humanitarian crisis. I mean, what are you going to do next? Put floating mines across the Rio Grande? Start blowing people up? That'll make them think twice about coming here. Maybe we can do better. Maybe if we put our heads together and stop using immigration as a political wedge issue, we could come up with some actual solutions. Last one. And I could do a lot more. Sure. Corporations got to pay their fair share. Yeah, you're right. But if you can't make them do it, if they're just going to pass the cost down to the consumer, what good is it for you to keep saying it? Being right isn't good enough. Talk to me when you can actually fix it. Fix the corporations not paying their fair share. Talk to me then. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are enshrined in the Constitution. You can't take away my freedom. Yeah, you're right. You're right about that. Those things are enshrined in the Constitution. But what makes a transgender woman in Chicago happy may not make an evangelical man in Mississippi happy. So who gets to decide which person gets to be happy? Pursue happiness. Who gets to decide how each person is allowed to live, where they can work, where they can buy a wedding cake, who they can marry? The Supreme Court? Okay. Will everyone accept the Supreme Court's decision, depending on which way they decide? We agree the Constitution enshrines life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. It doesn't specify what to do about hypocrisy. But finally, you're right. This next election will be the most important election of our lives. Let me say it before everyone else starts saying it. I know we told you the last 5 were the most important, but this is the one. This one is the most important. You may be right. This one might be the most important election of our lives. I've said it a couple times, or I've asked, I should say, what if you get your wish and Donald Trump goes to jail or loses again to Joe Biden? Now, I think when I say that, people think I'm suggesting it might be better for Trump to win the election. No, that's not what I'm saying. Trump is not mentally fit to run a 5K race, much less run this country. No, I'm saying, shouldn't we be working on healing the country in preparation of a Trump loss or conviction? Shouldn't we be working on trying to bring the country together, unite the country around some common beliefs, some common values, in anticipation of the way things could go with Donald Trump? If, like I say, they go the way you want them to go, for people who want to see Trump defeated or in jail. I think they're going to, people who think that way think they're going to be dancing in the streets on that day. And I'm saying to you, it may not be safe on those streets on that day. And shouldn't we prepare for that? And that's where President Joe Biden is letting me down. He's shown no leadership in this regard, either because he doesn't recognize the moment or he is not up to the moment. I honestly don't know which it is. He does not seem to be aware of just how deep this Trump scar runs in this country. Of course he is. We're all aware. No, trust me. If people in the administration were aware of how bad it is out there for some people, they would have been pushing the panic button long ago. Ashley Babbitt, Roseanne Boylan, both died at the Capitol on January 6th. Craig Robertson, shot by the FBI in Utah when they went to serve a warrant at his home because of threats he made against Biden and Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan DA prosecuting Trump. Ricky Schiffer, shot and killed by the FBI in Cincinnati after he tried to breach an FBI office because he was upset over the FBI's raid of Mar-a-Lago. Stuart Rhodes, leader of the Oath Keepers, sentenced to 18 years. 18 years for seditious conspiracy for his actions on and leading up to January 6th. Hundreds of others arrested, charged, some sentenced for January 6th. Thousands of people dead from coronavirus. Thousands. Laying in hospital beds, pleading, unfortunately, too late for a vaccine to save their lives. I'm sorry if I sound like I'm talking about these things as if they are a tragedy and not, well, you got what you deserve, as I'm sure some people out there would say, would look at it. No, I see these things as tragic. Tragic. Just imagine dying from a virus that there was essentially a cure, for lack of a better word, a way to keep you alive because you listened to people who lied to you. You listened to people who took advantage of you. You listened to people who just didn't know. Didn't know. They didn't have the information. They didn't know any better than anyone else did, but they told you what they thought you wanted to hear. Don't take the vaccine. Don't wear a mask. Don't worry about getting in big gatherings. You'll be fine. It's just the flu. It's no big deal. They're just trying to take down his economy. All the things that people said that led to people dying. That's not heroic. That's not a heroic way to go. I'm sorry. I feel sorry for the people. But this is not going to be remembered as a Crispus Attucks killed at the start of the American Revolution. No, these people won't be remembered at all. No. And a lot of the people, including the leaders of some of the groups on January 6th, are saying, we were duped. We were lied to. We were used in a political game. But yet, even as some of the people who have suffered some of the greatest punishment and come to terms with the realization of what they did, even as some people have suffered death, we still have a large, perhaps majority of the Republican Party. I'm talking Republican politicians now, not voters. I know voters too, but I'm speaking particularly about politicians. We have a large majority defending the actions, defending the rhetoric, trying to excuse it by blaming both sides. Yeah, both sides are the fault here. No, I don't blame Joe Biden for what's going on with this sometimes violent political divide in this country, but I do blame him for not showing leadership to address it, even sometimes seeming to use it to his advantage when he speaks of MAGA Republicans and enemies of democracy. I know it's anger and it's resentment for what Trump has done to the country, and I'm not telling people they're wrong. Again, this is when being right just isn't enough. I'm not telling people they're wrong. I know they're angry and they're upset about things that have happened, people who have been killed, people who've been gunned down, even in El Paso, Texas, or in Buffalo. The husband of a representative of our Congress getting banged in the head with a hammer. I get it. But where's the leadership to address it in a way that unites the country, that brings the country together in some way? And I know what I'm going to get. I know what I get every time I talk like this. Whenever I talk to somebody, they say, you cannot talk to those people. You cannot reach those people. There's nothing you can say to those people. I'm not asking you to talk to those people. I'm not asking you to. I doubt people in Iran or Iraq ever talk to one another. But you just hope most days they're not trying to kill each other. That's what I'm trying to avoid. I'm not asking anybody to talk to anybody. I'm not asking anybody to sit down and say, hey, let's all, come together and agree. No, not looking for any agreement here. People who say you just can't talk to those people are a lost cause, you can't talk to them. Generally, what they have in their mind is you can't get those people to agree with you. That's what they mean when they say you can't talk to those people. You can't convince those people that they're wrong. Well, stop trying to do that, and you'll be able to talk to them, just like you used to before Trump. These are the same people. These are the same people you probably were friends with for years. For years. There might even be people who were your family that you spoke to for years. And now all of a sudden there's no talking to them? No, there's no talking to them because you just want them to admit that they're wrong. And it ain't going to happen. So we got a major problem in this country with this next election because it appears we have one side who seems to not recognize just how big the problem is, and we have another side who wants to talk out of both sides of their mouth about the problem. Out of one side of their mouths, they condemn the violence. They condemn political violence. And on the other side of their mouth, they're either silent when people post the names and addresses of grand jurors in the Georgia Trump case, or they downright will defend the actions of people on January 6th. excusing it, downplaying it. No, those people were just tourists. They were just tourists. Well, 2 tourists and 3 law enforcement were killed on that day. Now, here's the good news. A recent poll, I forget what poll it was either CBS or NBC, recent poll found only 7% of respondents thought it was justified to use violence to return Trump to power. The bad news, that was up from like 3.5% prior to Trump's indictments. Now, 7%. I know. You say, oh, 7%. Yeah. I know. You would hope it would be 0% think violence is justified to put Trump back in the White House. But apparently, that's not the country we're living in right now. So if people think the next election is the most important in our history, you're right. Because it very well could determine if that poll that asked if political violence is justified goes down below 7% or goes up to, well, let's just call it Civil War percent. Ooh, got a little deeper at the end there than I expected I was going to, but okay. Thanks for listening. I surely do appreciate it.
Getting born in the state of Mississippi. Papa was a copper and mama was a hippie. In Alabama, she was swinging a hammer. Price you gotta pay when you break the panorama. She never knew that.
Thank you so much for all the sharing. We had a great week. One of the best weeks ever, if not the best week ever. Thank you. Please continue. Please continue to share. I appreciate it. It works. It works. I told you. If you don't hear back from people, if they don't tell you, oh, I listen, don't worry. It does work if you share.
Black bandana, sweet Louisiana, robbing on a bank in the state of Indiana. She's a runner, rebel and a stunner, on them every way, saying, baby, what you gonna? Looking down the fair.
Here's what I wonder. Do you share the show or the episode? I ask because I think some people might share the show. What happens is people say, hey, check this out. It was a really good show. And they share the podcast itself, not the particular episode. And then someone goes and listens to an episode that's nothing like the episode you listened to. And they go, what the heck was that? So, some episodes lean more left, some more right. So if you like a particular episode, you want to share that particular episode, just so you know. Oh, come on. Excuse me for a minute while I dance my way out of here.
Come on, baby, it's hot in here and it's also cool outside. And if you lend me $1, I can buy some gas and we can go for a little ride. She said, hey, Bossa baby, keep on working for the same, got time for that. She said, yo, Bossa baby, keep on dancing.
Thanks for listening. Remember, check out the website, www.thecomparisongroup.com. Follow me on Twitter, at @comparison_show. At @comparison_show. Listen, subscribe, rate the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you get podcasts. I'll see you next time.